What is up, party people? Welcome, 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 welcome to another episode of I don't even know what to call this show at this point. Um I was gonna say welcome to another episode of another show. But I don't have a title for this show. If you've been around long enough, we've had different titles, process, podcast, all those kind of things. I don't know what to call this. I know it's gonna be a good conversation though. And so I'm grateful. Shout out to everybody joining on various different um, outlets. Okay. Shout out to those of you who might be joining up on Instagram now that I have clicked go live. Shout out to everybody who is joining up through TikTok and YouTube. I hope you guys have been getting a lot out of this series as we've been locking in on the dating app dilemma. And we're just going to quickly continue our conversation. And these conversations are going to move a little bit more fast paced, but something that obviously you want to come back to, you want to digest, and of course, you want to build with. All right. For those of you who are new, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith based relationship coach, and I've helped hundreds build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with God, and with others while building security that lasts beyond marriage. And don't let your eyes deceive you. Okay? Yes, we are diving into topic of conversation centered on dating apps. All right? So many people use them, yet there's so many people who are not having great success with them. And here's the kicker, it has less to do with the app, has more to do with the heart postures and people joining the apps. And we're going to dive into this um, a little bit further. This is now the sixth installment of this series. And if you've missed the previous five conversations, I highly encourage you to go back and watch them, okay? Because we did cover quite a bit, starting with just a rough foundation and then getting clarity on exactly what it is that we're facing when it comes to the usage of dating apps from an analytical statistic perspective, okay? Doing some research, seeing some studies, seeing some outcomes, and what does that mean for you? And then we dove into objections, common objections within dating apps. Okay. 5 to 7 that we addressed that you want to go take a look at because you've probably mentioned them to yourself before, or at least in the vicinity of the relationships and dating apps you've been on. Shout out to Lindo in the chat on Instagram. Good to see you. How are you? Did I say Instagram? I meant TikTok. Good to see you. So we had a really good conversation there. Okay. And then we follow that up with asking a pretty good specific question to this audience. Okay. Should Christians use dating apps? All right. Is it permissible? Right? Is it valid? Is it available? Okay. Is this something that we should even do? Is it going against God's will? Right? Are we fighting against the design if we use dating apps to meet people, to connect, to date, to get out there, to be seen? And we cover a little bit about that. Okay. Of course, all of this in this series is designed to give you, hopefully, my goal is to give you the best as far as I know, and of course, what I've studied, research, and things like that, coupled with my own experience and what I've helped clients through. My goal is to give you a subsized amount of information and helpful tips to navigate these things if you so choose to use dating apps. Okay. It's not necessarily about a conversation of right or wrong, should you or should you not. It's just more about your capacity to be able to engage in them and engage in them healthily. Okay. Obviously, I know that there are a lot of beliefs, there are a lot of stigmas, there are a lot of things out there that you are going to come across, listen to, hear, and maybe you even carry yourself. But I'm asking you to come in with this with an open heart. Okay. Stay curious as we just dive into this conversation to make the most of it because we're all on a journey of truth together. All right. And this is a safe space to do it. Okay. So appreciate everybody joining in, whether you're on YouTube, you're watching the replay. you are on TikTok, you are on Instagram. Okay. So much love for you. And we're going to go ahead and get started because today, all right, we're going to be issuing another installment. And this installment is just really going to be focused on discernment. All right. As you may have heard me mention in the previous episodes, I believe it might have been around episode 2 or 3 or part 2 or 3. Okay. Where we kind of started talking about um, like how to discern some of these things, right? The importance of being able to sift through the experiences on dating apps, right? And in order to like set this stage up in the healthiest of ways, I think it's going to be good that we do a few things. One, that we give some type of definition to discernment. Okay. I think that's going to be really important. But then we also want to get a grasp on the importance of discernment, not just to dating and using dating apps, but to any and every area of your life and your role and responsibility that you have in not just cultivating this discernment, this muscle of discernment, but actively using it wherever you go, right? Because I think there's a viewpoint that discernment is something that's just downloaded onto you, right? Whether it's from a church service, you go to, you hear a message, a podcast, or it's just one of those buzzwords that's often thrown around in Christian circles and spaces, but also just in social media in general. And I think there is a belief that when we talk about defining discernment, a lot of you might say, well, shoot, I don't know. I just know that it's a word used. My pastor uses it, right? My church uses it. So I just go with it. Or, okay, maybe you don't necessarily have an exact direction of what discernment looks like. And I have a very simplistic definition that I think you will be able to carry with you and, of course, grow into as like a beginning starting point to engaging in discernment. Okay. Because this is something that is really important, not just to usage of dating apps or if you decide to use them, but just going on dates, dating people, experiencing the life that's around you. Okay. And so I want you to, of course, as you're coming in here, do a few things. Number one, get you a notepad, something to write with, take notes on. Okay. Be sure to save this video. All right. Replay will be up on YouTube. Be sure to save it. Be sure to share it with somebody who you feel like can benefit from this. Maybe you'll need it now. Maybe they'll need it later. Okay. Or, of course, be sure to like the video, subscribe, all the things as we're continuing to dive into this. And of course, as we get to the end, I'll share with you next steps on what applying these things can look like and what your next paths can look like in terms of joining a program that's beneficial for you. All right. So let's define discernment for a second. All right. Let's define discernment. And this is not one, okay, again, from a place that I'm going to define from specific scriptures. Actually, well, it is specific scriptures. I think it's all over the scriptures. I just don't think it's said in this way. Okay. Um, because one of the things that um one of the things that I think we notice throughout scriptures, okay, because of course all of this is highlighted from a biblical background. One of the things that I find very interesting in scripture is just a lot of implicit perspectives behind the explicits that are given. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with those terminologies, explicit, okay, it's visibly shown, clearly shown, point right to it. Implicit is something that's implied. It's not directly said. However, this can be something that is implied from the context of a text, context of a saying that could actually be valuable. So, of course, you want to move with the explicits. You want to be careful with the implicits because sometimes we can add things into the text that shouldn't be there. Okay. But this is just a perspective that I want you to see. And this is actually going to be from an Old Testament perspective. All right. This is actually where Israel is being taken into the promised land. Okay. Moses is actually giving them directions. Okay, on what to do and what to expect as in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, so this is going to be really, really important as you guys have some kind of biblical background to where I'm coming from when I mention discernment. What's up, Ash? Good to see you over there in the TikTok app, in the Tiki. How you living? Good to see you. Okay. Um, so all right. And I'm gonna find this, and I believe it is in Deuteronomy. Um, but I could be wrong. So I'm going back to my notes really quickly. Hey, what's up, Yabania? Hey, how you living, sis? It has been a long time. I hope you're well. We still got some catching up to do. Yeah, we still got some we still got some catching up to do, huh? Be sure to send me a message. Maybe we can still connect, get you what you need. Hope things are going well. All right. So there is a passage of scripture in Deuteronomy. There's a couple. I'll give you an Old Testament and a New Testament reference. All right. Something that could be really helpful. So I'm going to start with Old Testament, as we were just saying, Deuteronomy. All right. And this is actually going to be found in chapter 18. Okay. And this is specifically verse 21 through 22. Okay. And it reads this, but you may wonder, how will we know whether or not a prophecy is from the Lord? They're speaking about prophets in the land in context. Okay. So Moses is helping them decipher the difference between a true and a false prophet in this context. And this is what he says: if the prophet speaks in the Lord's name, but his prediction does not happen or come true, you will know that the Lord did not give that message. That prophet has spoken without my authority and need not be feared. Okay. So one of the greatest signs to know if somebody who is saying something that is claiming to be from God is if what they said to be from God comes true. So I actually just want to go ahead and put this in here for some of you who are constantly weighing yourself down and causing yourself to have sleepless nights because you are up thinking and contemplating and being so self-convinced that somebody that isn't yours is yours from the Lord. I want to free you for a second because it didn't come to pass, therefore let it go. I know you said, God told me I was your husband. God said I was your wife. God said, and guess what? They went on and they married somebody else. They're with somebody else and they said no to you, which means what? You are free to let it go. And guess what? You continuing to hold on to this is a you problem, not a God problem. I literally just helped a majority of you with this issue right along. Okay. But let's keep it moving because there's an implied perspective given in these verses alone. And then what we see in the New Testament from the words of Jesus in regards to false teachers and prophets that you also want to take into consideration. Because realize how in Deuteronomy 18, one thing that we can clearly see that isn't mentioned is the removal of said false teachers and prophets, right? He's not coming in here just removing these people from the land and from the scene. So that must mean that there's something we have to engage with in order to decipher between what's real and what's not. All right, this is going to get good. Hang with me. All right, Matthew 7 is where we're going to next. All right, now obviously this is one of four gospels, not the first gospel written. Mark was the initial gospel written, the others followed. Okay, but Matthew talks about Jesus from the perspective of him being the coming king. Okay, Matthew being a very analytical individual, being a once tax collector, now turned disciple. Okay, the context and viewpoint of Jesus, he's the coming promised king. Okay, he's Matthew's king. He's Mark's suffering servant. He's Luke's great physician, John's word made flesh, as like a nice setup for what to expect, the direction in which each gospel takes. Okay. So hang in there for me. Okay. Matthew 7 and verse 15 and 16. We're getting to the crux of what discernment looks like. All right. And why this matters to this conversation regarding the dating app dilemma. So Matthew 7, verse 15 reads this: beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. Okay. You can identify them by their fruit. That is, by the way they act. Okay. This is good. So then we'll go further. Can you go? Can he gives a nice little picture here? Okay. Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit. A bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, so you can identify people by their actions. Okay, let that be a nice word for a lot of y'all. You can identify who people are not by what they say, but by what they do. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, of course, in this context, he's on the Sermon on the Mount, he's on the back end of it. Okay, there's some sections here. He gives a golden rule. Okay, Jesus is teaching a group of people who are lowly, group of people who are at their lowest spiritually, economically, mentally, emotionally, all the things, religiously, spiritually. Okay. We're talking about people who are surrounding Jesus, who more than likely are experiencing some form of oppression from Roman government because they have recently just taken over Jerusalem. They've recently just taken over a nice perspective or portion of the lands in which Jesus is navigating through. So Roman government, okay, confusion among the land within religious spirituality. Okay. You got Jews, Greeks, not seeing eye to eye. Okay. It's a lot going on. All right. And on this back end, Jesus is one, moving through this Sermon on the Mount, getting to the heart of the matter without extending or expanding rules to follow. All right. And in this particular setup, he's giving this in context, okay, to not just how you ought to view other people, how you ought to deal with other people, okay, but also what to look for to determine the legitimacies of other people you connect with. And this is where he comes to the context of fruit. All right. So there's a lot of things here without going so far into a Bible study. All right. But this is where we derive these two chapters alone, among so many others throughout the context of the scriptures, is where we derive our custom definition of discernment. Are you ready? I want you to write it down. I want you to pin it. I want you to save it. I want you to find some, put it on your walls, put it as a screensaver. I don't care what you do, but you need to find it. Okay. Here it is. Discernment is the ability to see something for what it is and act accordingly. Okay. Discernment is the ability to see something the way it is and act accordingly. All right. Discernment is the ability to see something for what it is and act accordingly. In other words, discernment gives you the ability to call a thing a thing. It gives you the ability to call a thing a thing. Now, here's layers to discernment, because when we talk about discernment in different layers, even to the lengths of spiritual foundation, okay, what something appears to be in the natural isn't necessarily what it is in the spiritual, right? There's something deeper, greater in the spiritual that can be seen. This is a spiritual principle we're talking about. Discernment, and I should have said this in the beginning. Discernment is a spiritual principle. So if you don't carry a spiritual foundation and you don't value those things, none of this conversation is going to make sense to you. And I think it also is another great reason why you shouldn't even be engaging in dating in the first place. Don't don't hit the messenger. I'm not asking you to be a prophet. I'm not asking you to be a pastor, a reverend. I'm not asking you to go across the lands and preach the gospel. I'm not asking you to have the greatest prayer life. I'm not putting more pressure on you to be some kind of religious Pharisee. Absolutely not. But a spiritual foundation is necessary if we are going to, in any way, shape, or form, navigate these dating streets with the healthiest intentions. So if that is not where you are, and you're like, fam, like you know, I don't have a religion, I don't have a faith with God. I don't even know if a God is real. I'm not saying you don't have a starting place. Obviously, keep showing up, keep being here. But my 2 cents, hey, maybe we should you know, take a moment to step away from the dating scene and figure that out. Because that's really important. Those are some really important things to figure out if we want to date to the best of our abilities. Okay. I really do believe that. It's just an opinion. I'll throw that in there. Okay. But discernment, the ability to see something for what it is and act accordingly. Discernment gives you the ability to call a thing a thing. Okay. Now, even though, again, like I said, there's layers to discernment, what you may see in the natural isn't always exactly what it is in the spiritual. Sometimes it's different, sometimes it's deeper. Okay. And our ability to be in tune with that is important. But I don't want to put so much on you in this first part of the conversation and introductory to discernment that you feel like, oh my God, like there's just certain things that I have to grow privy of seeing that I can't see. And it just adds a lot of hoopla to it. Okay. Just to simplify it. And as you engage in this is something that you're able to grow in. Discernment is the ability to see something for what it is and act accordingly. So you want to know why some of y'all are having horrible dating experiences is because you refuse to call a thing a thing. You have every excuse in the book for somebody you're connecting with as to why you want to remain connected to them when they don't even align with you in the first place. Matter of fact, there are some of you who are pre-advancing in the dating spaces because you keep calling somebody you just met your husband, your wife. You got them in your contacts, you got them labeled as that, and there's no ring, there's no proposal, there's no wedding, all talk, no action, right? And what is the prominent thing that we see in both of these texts that are very important to discernment? It is paying attention to behaviors, not just words. It's fruit, not just words. In other words, words are not fruit, actions are. Can you put that in the chat? Okay. If you can't hear that, I just got my soundtrack going. I just had to take a breath on that for a second. Words are not fruit, actions are. And actions are one of the greatest things to pay attention to in order to be able to develop your discernment. I hear what you're saying. What are your actions? Right? I hear that you're interested. Where's the date? I hear that you like this type of music. I hear you like these types of qualities, but where is the behavior, the reach out, the connection? Okay. Where's the attempt? I hear that you apologized, but what are we going to do next time so this doesn't keep happening? Whew. Words are not fruit, actions are. And discernment gives us the ability to lock in with that. Okay. This is as simple as ABC, 1, 2, 3, no Michael Jackson. Okay. And I think this is something that could easily give y'all beginning steps to moving in this. This is not to give us new language. This is not to give us more spiritual language to sound better than we are or further than where we are. This is just to help us kind of, kind of not muddy the waters that they've already been in to move healthily. Okay. I got to move on. I can't stay in this, but this is something that makes sense. Okay. First step, understanding what discernment is. Okay. It is not something that you just pray for. It is something that you have to apply. It is not something that you just sit in your prayer closet for and ask God to download, because part of developing discernment is putting in front of you what doesn't look like what you already know. Part of developing discernment is experiencing opportunities that don't quite match where you are and the alignment you want to develop. So, for those of you who are begging God for discernment, realize that your part is to play the role of not just knowing Him, knowing His word, all the things, but growing further into deciphering between what's real and what ain't. So, in other words, you cannot come into these dating fields and expect not to come across duds, crusties, and dusties, because it's a repetition of you recognizing what is real and what ain't. Can I give you another definition while we here? Because he's here. Let's just go there. So Genesis is a great place. Don't you realize before God gave Adam Eve out of his rib, he gave him, we all know it, he gave him work, right? He gave him something to cultivate, something to build. He gave him purpose. We know the whole deal. I find it so interesting that when God first says it is not good for man to be alone, he directs Adam to name animals. Now, it sounds good to preach it. I'm not going to say what I initially want to say because it sounds good preaching, but this ain't no like preachy sermon, okay? I'm not even trying to get you a sermon. I'm just trying to get you to see some things, okay? I just think it's unique that Adam was like able to look at the animals and he just started naming them off. And yet there was still something in him that was like, man, I feel complete. Don't get me wrong. Ain't nothing missing. But this whole idea of man should not be, you know, man is not designed to be alone. And then for his statements when Eve comes up to be bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, I just think that's very interesting. He's like, wow, this looks like someone that reflects me. My body, what I look like, all the things. It just reflects me. And I think it's very, very good case to say, man, even discernment was moving in the garden, because Adam was even able to discern the difference between an animal and the one that was meant to be and do life with him. The right one and an animal. He was able to discern the difference, at least there, from animalistic behavior to human behavior, healthy behavior. Okay. I think that's interesting. Maybe that's something that you pen. Maybe that's something that you study. I just want to throw that out there. Okay. Because one of the greatest things that we can do to determine and grow in levels of discernment is not always God weeding out that which isn't there and doing it for you. At some point, you have to be able to grow the muscle to tell the difference between what makes sense and what doesn't. And guess how you do it? By calling a thing, by paying attention to fruit, because words are not fruit, actions are. Okay. I hope that makes sense because we're moving on. All right. Because now that we have a groundwork for discernment, we have a beginning space for what discernment is and what discernment looks like. Okay. Well, how does this apply in a dating app setting? Right. How can we exercise this level of discernment when we're moving through dating apps? Okay. Well, I'll give you a few. All right. Because when we start talking about discernment on dating apps, we have to begin to decipher some differences between common languages and things that you hear in these spaces that are pretty prevalent and pretty strong. Okay. Things like chemistry versus compatibility. Okay. Things like attraction and alignment, beauty and attraction, even you can actually foot in that. Okay. We just talked about words and fruit. Words are what you say, fruit is what you do. Right. Now, the best case scenario is one's words matching with their fruit. Right. So it's not just words that are producing fruit. They're speaking in love, speaking kindly, gently, peacefully. Right. But their behaviors match with those things in which they say. Right. So words and actions align. That's pretty easy. Okay. What about the determine the differentiating factor between what maybe can be called bio faith versus live faith? So you know those people that got the Bible verses in their bios that you feel gives you permission to shoot your shot, only for you to realize that when you had conversation with them, it just didn't actually fit, wasn't legit, too legit to quit. Yeah, we got to learn the difference between the two. Because what's interesting is that this may give you access. This is something I really want y'all to see here in this conversation. We're going to summarize all these things. What is initially designed to give you access is not something that's supposed to be the deciding factor. I want y'all to, if y'all are going to use dating apps, I need y'all to view them as access points. Access points. This is a beginning step, and this is giving an opportunity to have access to conversation of what this could look like depending on what we find. I need you to stay investigative, not cling to the person or the version of them that you envision them being once you have them, or what you saw on a profile. Because we know there's plenty of people that love hiding behind a profile, and it shows because you don't want to take it out the app. But I'll leave that there. Okay. We have to learn the difference between, in some ways, okay, effort and consistency. We have to learn the difference between charm and character, attention and intention, intention and direction. And we also have to be able to understand why vibes aren't enough. Okay. We have to, right? Because the biggest factor is understanding that even when you use dating apps, and this isn't just to dating apps, although this is the center of the conversation, you can apply this everywhere. A dating app gives y'all access, man, but discernment tells you what deserves continued access. Would you write that down? What we're going to discover in the rest of this conversation is that a dating app gives you access, but you practicing the usage of discernment tells you what deserves continued access. And guess what? As part of building this muscle of discernment, okay, for some of you, this might still be a newer conversation where you're like, man, I realize that I don't really know where I'm at on my levels of discernment. Like, I don't. Okay. Well, I'm going to be honest. For some of you, the way to build that and to grow in that is to get yourself in position to be seen, to connect with people, to date, to befriend people. It ain't always on dating stuff. You know, if you get on some dating apps, they do have sections where you can just look for friendships and friends only. So start small. Okay. But we do have to put ourselves in arenas where we're able to develop the muscle of being discerned, of moving in discernment. You're not going to just grow in discernment by staying in your house all day, taking notes from sermons, reading your Bible, and not connecting with people. Let's just get that out the way. You're not going to develop the muscle of discernment if all you do is go to church, go to work, stay in your bubble, okay? And you don't connect with people. You've got to be willing to put yourself in position to put this stuff to the test. And the greatest way to do it is by connecting with people, getting to know people, not throwing yourself at people, but getting to know people, having conversations with people. Okay. This is how we build it. Just like you're not going to become the most fit in the gym by reading all the books on fitness and watching every influencer go to the gym and lift. Okay. You have to eventually put yourself in the gym. If you want to be a swimmer, you're going to have to eventually put yourself in a body of water and practice that breaststroke, backstroke, all the things. You're not going to be able to do that just by reading books on swimming. At some point, the intellectualizing has to coexist into the application. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to cover a couple of these. Some of them I listed, some of them I haven't. All right. But we're going to cover a couple of these because we do need to get some understandings on some of these differences. Okay. Let's start with chemistry versus compatibility. Okay. Let's start with chemistry and compatibility. It's a really good point, right? When we're on these dating apps and we're trying to discern and actively use discernment, that again is focusing on behaviors, not just words. Chemistry is often a word that people associate from simplest of terms to some sort of like not just spark, but agreement. Okay. So there's some type of feeling and spark that's happening within that is also connected to some of the things that we both enjoy doing. We have great chemistry. We get along together. Okay. And by some of you, you might define that chemistry by we don't argue much. Like we have great chemistry in the sense that we like the same things. There's a lot of similarities. You like R&B, I like R&B. You love Jesus, I love Jesus. Right? You do this, I do that. You go to the gym, I go to the gym. We just got some similarities. The chemistry is there. Like we just click. Right? If I asked a lot of y'all what clicking meant, y'all probably couldn't tell me. But that's more than likely where that's going. We just click. It's just easy. Okay? But here's the difference between that and then compatibility. Because compatibility doesn't necessarily always fall within the reins of physicality and even sexuality in the sense of like sexual, tension or all these things that you might hear online. Okay, let's just unpack it. Okay, because I really do believe that the idea of sexual compatibility we have created that actually doesn't even have a basis and strong foundation as much as y'all give it credit to. Okay. I'll be the one to disrupt the flow. And this is something for you to take and sit on. Okay. Because I would argue that compatibility is less about what you can do in bed and how you can perform for one another, not just in bed, but in other places, but more so about alignment and agreement from your values. Okay. Alignment and agreement when it comes to authenticity, alignment and agreement when it comes to being healed mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay. Because truth is, chemistry is what allows us to know how well we can get along. But compatibility opens up the window to let us know how long we can actually stay together. Chemistry is what opens up the opportunity for us to connect. Compatibility sets the framework for how long we're able to stay connected. And being able to stay connected has less to do with one's performance in bed, has less to do with exactly, maybe even you might see a lot of the physical compatibilities because there's actual science on this. Okay. So I don't want to necessarily throw that under the bus. There's some legit sciences to the physical features, right? What's more attractive? Okay. Science might even tell you that people date in a manner of having even an ounce of well, they might kind of describe it as like self neglect. Okay. Because they might date somebody with a lighter skin tone than them, maybe a darker skin tone than them. They don't want somebody that looks exactly like them. They want something a little different. That's science. That's very true. Okay. But we cannot just limit the aspect of compatibility to that which are physical features. Y'all, there is a world where even though you might not be compatible off rip physically with somebody, that you can actually create something that's healthy. Now, we're not removing physical features and attraction from the conversation. As y'all have heard me say many a times, I am not going to be that person that you hear that says, man, what's in the heart is greater than. No. Listen, there's a world where your personality, your spirit, who you are, absolutely, that matters most. That's what we include in attraction. But physical attraction plays a role. That's why you're not giving everybody that gives you and shoot they shot at you a chance, because they don't look too good for you. And that's okay. Let's be honest about that though. Right? So physical compatibility plays a role. Okay. Yes, studies do show that, Kristen. That's a great point. Okay. Studies say that humans pick partners who have different immune systems from their own. There are great studies that show that. But I want y'all to hear this, though. Okay. I want y'all to hear this. That does not mean, right? Even in those studies that and of course, this is not you saying this, Kristen, but I think it's fair to just mention this is not us suggesting that then we should just go and measure one another's immune systems to determine what fits and what doesn't, right? That's a little too much, because I do believe there's a level of compatibility that is more centered on alignment and values, less on physical traits. Physical traits play a role, it's not the whole thing. Okay? It's not the whole thing. Of course, I want to enjoy what I'm looking at and build something. That goes both ways. Okay? But what we have to recognize is that the bigger point of compatibility is alignment mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That's a bigger form of compatibility. Chemistry is what presents an open door for us to connect. Compatibility presents a stable foundation that allows us to remain connected. I want you to remember that. Chemistry opens the door to connect. Compatibility is what lays the foundations for us to stay connected. Y'all gonna want to remember this. For some of y'all who are dating, for some of y'all who aren't, y'all gonna want to remember this. This is the live to save. I'm telling you that right now. This is the live to save. Okay? So those are beginning conversations to this. But the next time that you look at somebody and you say you're not compatible, I want you to be curious and ask yourself, what are you measuring this compatibility by? Are you measuring the compatibility by looks only, or is there more to this connection that is missing for you to feel compatible enough? Matter of fact, what are you measuring compatibility by? By how you showed up or how they showed up? That's a really great question. Because for a lot of you, compatibility is more measured by how this person shows up, forgetting there's a role you have to play in cultivating the compatibility by how you show up. Yeah. In honesty, in healthy lanes, in capabilities. So these things are massively important. Thank you for the rose. Massively important. Okay. Common ground in your values. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I have gotten online and I've seen people talk about we just weren't sexually compatible. Can I give y'all just some free game? Just some free game. All right. You don't determine somebody's sexual compatibility when y'all get in bed. Just want y'all to know that. I just think that's valuable information to know. Valuable information, though. You want to know one of the greatest ways to determine somebody's potential sexual compatibility with you, that, by the way, you actually can cultivate with somebody? It's not something you need to know or have figured out by the time you're dating them and getting to know them. So people who use this sexual compatibility excuse to get out of relationships that actually make sense for you, you're the problem. I want to throw that out there. It's very possible that you're the problem. Or you just don't like them. You just don't like them. Maybe there was an expectation you had about marriage and relationships that led you to feel like, oh, this is all supposed to be figured out by the time I get here. I don't know who told you that, but walk it back. I don't know who told you that, but walk it back. One of the greatest ways you can determine somebody's sexual compatibility is how do they sit in silence? How do they breathe? How do they control their emotions? Are they present enough with themselves and their body to be aware of what's happening in moments of disconnection? I love that you said that. Let me go a little further. Listen, y'all. Um, when it comes to the experience of sex, what many people are not taught is that there is a sense of immense need for both parties to be fully engaged and present with one another and themselves in order to get the most out of what God has designed. Present emotionally, present mentally, present physically, fully immersed in the moment. Okay. Our nervous systems, if we want to go to a scientific route, okay, this is a little bit of a derail. We're going to clean all this up. And maybe there's a time where we talk about this on a live. I don't want to spend too much time here. Okay. But when we talk about on a nervous system level, okay, when a woman and a man, okay, are connected and come together, in order for this experience to actually hit a peak for both parties, okay, there is a need for the parasympathetic nervous system to be activated. The parasympathetic nervous system is what engages in a form of relaxation, calm, safety. Okay. That is how we maximize that. And so what's crazy is a lot of you aren't even in a place where you can transition to your parasympathetic because you're constantly living in the sympathetic. The sympathetic, that is more so of a alerted, where your alerts come from. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn kind of lives within your nervous system. Everything is in a hurry. Everything is in a chase and a climax. Everything is a means to feel, to distract. And when we move with these kinds of ambitions, and when we are not settled and safe enough within ourselves, you trying to go find that safety within someone else through an act, even such as sex, is defeating the purpose of that which you're behaving in, which is sexual connection. So, a lot of people that are saying we are not sexually compatible, not saying everybody, but a lot of people in the mainstream culture who say we aren't sexually compatible. My first question is not what did they not do, know, or learn to be able to connect with you. My first question is going to come to you. How safe were you? How safe was the person you were connected to? How present were you in your own body and mind, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually? When you had emotional struggles, how did you handle those? When disappointments and failures and all those things occurred, how did you handle those? Because believe it or not, all of this plays a role in one's ability to reproduce and cultivate and connect with somebody healthily, consistently. Okay. And these are just beginning conversations. I don't want to just drop y'all off somewhere. Okay. Because there's a lot of context around that. Okay. So there's a lot of missing things that we can come back and clean up. So I see you, Rit, right? You feel very disconnected, and it wasn't always like that. I think there's some other conversations that are necessary because you asked the question, how do you grieve the loss of mismatched compatibility in that realm? I really think, okay, I really think we have a lot of questions to ask ourselves because to assume that, so again, and this is something that maybe we can take offline. I'd love to be of service to you. By the way, everybody who's in this live currently, okay, I actually have a discount going on for the month of June. Just send me a keyword discount and I'll get you my Calendly that's at a 50% off. We can get a session in. Okay. That's where you want to be. That's how we're going to navigate this. That's how we're going to actually make the most of it. Okay. So be sure to do that. Send me a message with discount. I'll get you my Calendly that's booked off, marked off at 50% for the month of June. Okay. So you got like, 5, 6 days remaining in the month to maximize it, but better late than never. Okay. So send me a message. I'd love to get you started. But here's the thing, because when we talk about how do I grieve that mismatch, there's a couple of things that I want to ask questions to. Because in order to assume that we're grieving, there's a loss. So the question becomes, what are we losing? What did we lose? And then we really need to question ourselves in all seriousness. Um, well, one, to what extent did we feel we lost it? Okay. And is this something that we should even feel that why do we feel the need to grieve this? Why do we feel we need to acknowledge this loss? What about this loss has pushed us to a process of grieving? Okay. And so there's some beginning questions to this, but this is why again, there's like a whole layer of conversations that we just opened up. So I'm gonna zip it up because we're gonna come back at some point to talk about these things. Okay. But it's just something to start within beginning conversations because compatibility, y'all, is something that is developed where alignment in values is present. Compatibility is the groundwork that creates sustainability. And if you are trying to measure this sense of compatibility through 10 to 20 minutes of pleasure, that if we're both being honest, neither one of y'all are fully present enough to actually maximize in a healthy context that God designed it for, even through your nervous system, we're measuring by the wrong things. We're measuring by the wrong things. Okay? Compatibility is the foundation to which these things can cultivate. That's alignment in values, faith, lifestyle, direction. Okay? All these things that are massively important. Chemistry is what opens the door. We just get along. It's a fun time talking to them. It's a fun time connecting with them. I actually look forward to hearing from them. Okay? Very, very much so. Chemistry is not always about us having something to say. Chemistry can also be developed when there isn't anything to say. We just enjoy each other's presence that much. Now, that's developed with time. Don't expect that on the first date. Don't expect that on the first call. Don't expect that. No, that's developed with time. Okay? But there has to be enough of a connection somewhere for us to be able to go with that. Because I promise you, there are going to be moments if for some of you who want to be married, where chemistry and because you mad as hell at them. So we gotta figure that out. Okay. Attraction versus alignment is the next one. I'll be real brief with these next ones. We covered words versus fruit. Okay. Attraction versus alignment. Okay. Attraction. Okay. If we were really going to redefine attraction, y'all, attraction can't just be in the physical realm. We've been saying this in different ways. Okay. But if we're going to measure attraction, it cannot just be by the physical beauty I see someone carrying. It has to also culminate to the values that we create, the values that we align in together, the things that we care about most that allows us to say, not only am I ready for the journey of this, okay, but I'm also ready to develop this with someone that I'm choosing as a life partner. Okay. So there's attraction. Okay. We can honestly separate it between beauty and attraction. Okay. Beauty versus attraction. Beauty is what I see on the surface. It's what even made me do a double take because I was like, oh my Lord, who is that? Mm. Beauty is what opened up the door. I liked what I saw. And now here comes the ability to stay put and grounded in what we know to exercise further discernment. Where do we align? So this is where we don't allow somebody's beauty to become the driving force of conversation. Fellas, let's not live in a world where the conversation is only centered on her beauty, so much so that you lose sight of important questions and conversations you need to lead to figure out who she is. Ladies, this is where we do not allow one's handsomeness to be what keeps you clinging to this person, forgetting all that you need to ask and stay curious of to figure out if this is worth continuing to develop and build. Because what's real, what's really, really attractive that goes beyond beauty? Somebody's ability to say no. You know what's real attractive that goes beyond somebody's beauty? Somebody being consistent, following through, honesty, transparency, willingness to develop. taking curious and interest in where you are and not just centered on all and everything they do. We can go on and on. Alignment mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Somebody that prays for you, right? So like attraction is the total sum. Beauty is just, man, I acknowledge that you're a very beautiful person. Beautiful person. Now, again, we can always play on words, right? We can always say beauty carries layers, all these things, but this is just to simplify some of this because a lot of us get more caught up on what someone looks like than who they are. Both of them coincide, but the beauty is what should draw me to connect with you. And the more that we have conversation, it ought to build more desire to stay connected to you. And if at any point that falls off, we should start being honest. Some of y'all wait because y'all clinging on and hoping for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th date to be where it finds you. When in all honesty, when you heal and when you heal intentionally, a lot of us can figure it out in the first hour. A lot of us can figure it out in the first date. A lot of us can figure it out in the first couple conversations. I don't need a month to figure out what I want to do here. I don't need that. Mm-mm. I'm pretty set on what I see, pretty set on where I am, and pretty set on the decision I need to make. That is where healing and healed motives come into play. Okay? You can be beautiful and not attractive. You can be beautiful and not attractive. How many of us have met somebody that was beautiful? Beauty was on fleek, top 10, top two, and ain't two. But when you got to know them, when you got to connect with them, when you got to listen to them talk, boy, you went from a 10 to a 2 real quick. Okay. You know what's crazy? I actually went to a I'm gonna insert this here, okay, because we're only gonna go through a couple more. I went to a card show, man, with my best friend, man, my homie. This was before the NFL. Well, it was during the NFL season. This past season, we went to a card show, and I'm new to this. I'm new to this. I'm not in the space of trading cards. I'm very much unfamiliar with the territory, but I went because it was just an opportunity to hang with the bro. And man, I'm like, man, shoot. I mean, I've heard some things, but not all things. So let's do it. So we went here at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and it was such an interesting experience to me because I got to learn a lot about, man, like, okay, what's the goal? What are people after? Okay. Um, to, like what's going on here, right? Like how do we sell? How do we trade? Like all these guys that got all this money and buying, these cars that are expensive. I'm talking spending thousands of dollars, right? Like how do they do it? And so, with sparing you all the details, we're going through here and they're starting to talk about a grading scale. And I looked over at my homie. I'm like, bro, what's this grading scale they talking about? Like grading a card? Like how do you do that? He was like, yeah, man. So basically, people are able to scam you if they really want to. And so what you do is you have an app on your phone. It's going to go somewhere. Just stay with me. You have an app on your phone that gives you the permission to basically compare a card that is being sold to you in person versus its real market value. And one of the greatest ways to determine the legitimacies of the market value of the card in front of you is to run it through, I believe, what's called it's a like a PSA. It's something along those lines. I got to remember exactly what it is. I don't think I have it on my notes, but there's some kind of system that's presented that basically rates the legitimacy of the card. Okay. And the higher the number, the more authentic the card is. Okay. The more authentic it is, the more valuable it is. Okay. So I believe it's like on a ranking of 1 to 10. Okay. 10 being the highest. And then I believe, obviously one being the lowest. And so he was letting me know how basically you can take a card that you've gotten out of packs, okay, that you would buy at a store online, and to determine the legitimacy of the card, you would basically take it to a place that would grade the card. And they would grade the card on the measurement of the material, the measurement of the authenticity. the measurement of the realness of the card. How legit is it? Okay. The material, is it what it's presented itself to be? Is it exactly what this seller has projected this card to be that they sold me for? And I got to thinking, y'all, and I didn't know exactly when I was going to use this, but I'm going to use it here. It got me to thinking about how many people are presenting themselves to be tens when they're really twos. It got me to thinking how people present themselves as nines and tens, but you're really a two or a three. Because when we put you through the grading scale, that grading scale being where you are mentally, that grading scale being where you are emotionally, that grading scale being where you are spiritually, that grading scale being what in the world that makes us stay connected and build on this, the grading scale of authenticity, the grading scale of what it is you've been doing to heal tangibly in this process, asking questions, staying curious, getting to know who somebody is below and beyond the surface. A lot of y'all failed in categories, but you present yourself as a 10. And you know what they call that in the card trading business? Fraudulent. You know what they call that? Fake. You know what they will do to a card like that? Is the very item you tried to sell and get somebody off for $200, they'll tell you take these $2 and go on about your day. Because it's not legit. And I just wonder how much more authentic would your relationships be if instead of you rushing to be in the relationship for the sake of having one, being in a marriage for the sake of having one, hurrying to get one because you said at the beginning of 2026 was your year, and that by this time next year, which you said at the ice skating rink or underneath some fireworks on New Year's Eve, that by this time next year you was gonna have a boo, and you went through everything to make that done, but you don't even know who you sit next to, who you holding hands with, who you walking with, who you connecting with, and yet you hurried, you ran. I wonder how much better and more authentic your relationships would be if you were willing to put them by using your discernment muscle that is constantly growing, that has to grow by being put under tension to be able to know and discern to see that which what it really is. I wonder how much healthier your relationships would be if you stopped walking around here acting like you got a 10 on your shoulder when you really got a 2. If you would walk or if you would start being honest about the fact that you aren't even a full 10 yourself like you present yourself to be, because if you're honest, the way you handle rejection ain't it. The way you have dealt with you, the way you've ran with from wounds, you look like Usain Bolt out here. If you're being honest. And so y'all, I just want y'all to get to a place of looking in the mirror and taking a good look at yourself. Right? Being honest about where you are. And if that's where you are and you find somebody else where you are, beautiful thing. I hope it work out. That's aligned. But some of us are presenting ourselves to be something that we are not, and it's causing more harm than good. And then we turn around and we blame the dating apps. And it's like, nah, it ain't the dating app issue. It's a you issue. It's your heart issue. Okay. So beauty, beauty is what's on the out is surface. Beauty, skin, beauty, how you look. Okay. Attraction is more focused on alignment. Attraction is the very values that we find ourselves coming into agreement in. For Amos says, how can two walk together except we agree? Doesn't mean we agree on everything, but we agree on the foundations that gives us room to connect. I'm not saying they have to like everything you like. They have to do everything you do. They have to see the world exactly how you do. Matter of fact, the beauty and the currency of relationships is we're connecting to people who see the world through different lenses. And relationships not only test that, but welcome that. So stop trying to get people to see things exactly the way you do and start putting yourself in position to be open and curious about how somebody else arrived to where they were. That don't mean you got to date them. That don't mean you got to marry them, but this is something that will benefit your relationships greatly. Because relationships are the currency of life. Okay? We talked about words versus fruit. We talked about attraction versus or beauty versus attraction, chemistry versus compatibility. Okay? I want to tell you the last one. Attention versus intention. This is the last one. Okay. Couldn't get to all of them. I'm running low on time. Okay. Is this making sense so far? Put a one in the chat if this is making sense so far. Okay. Is this making sense so far? I'm going to give you this last one. I'm going to give you this last one. Y'all going to want to watch this replay again. Y'all going to want to have it. Y'all going to want to have it. Okay. So the last one is attention versus intention. Okay. Because there is a lot of people who are operating from senses of codependency. A lot of people who are operating from places where they need attention to feel better about who they are, to feel better about where they are, and to feel better about what they're doing. I just want you to be sure it's not you. And when we come to the conversation of attention, okay, someone who gives you attention is very different than someone who's being intentional about you. Someone who gives you attention, just to make it plain, likes to stay in the text messages. Someone who gives you attention, okay, likes to stay in the text messages, stay in the likes, stay in all those things, but not actually move intentionally by coming with, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is a plan. Let's get together. Let's connect. Let's take it out of the app. Let's take it out of the text messages. Let's actually see one another face to face. Attention versus intention. Attention thrives on performance, thrives on survival, thrives on external validation. Now, just because somebody's giving you attention doesn't necessarily mean that you are asking for it. You have to be honest with yourself on that. Okay. People will give you attention all day. You have to start looking for intention. I see that you blowing my phone up with all these messages talking about how beautiful, cute, handsome, nice looking, all these amazing words that you love to use and blow my phone up repetitively. But where is the action? Y'all, attention versus intention is oftentimes like experiencing the fireworks show on the 4th of July. 4th of July is coming up. Okay, a lot of people are going to be parked outside their neighborhoods and parks, and fireworks are going to go off. And, obviously you have the build up to the finale. It's the pops, it's the colors, it's the shapes, the words, all the things that are being spelled in the sky, and eventually you have the finale. But what's crazy? After then, like 20 minutes, things go silent. Right? It looks like it gave a lot of attention, caught your attention span for about 15, 20 minutes, but it didn't last beyond that. And I really want y'all to see from a picture like that how a lot of you are turning and asking for these, a lot of the attention, a lot of the lights, the loud sounds, the effects, the excitement, all this stuff to be what drives you crazy, and then get mad when there's not intentionality behind all the loud noise that was put behind it. My question to you is, why get mad at somebody for being what they are, which is operating oftentimes, depending on where they are and who they are, in dysfunction? Why don't we just catch it now and put it into it? Because what's happening is, especially when it comes to territories of love bombing, especially when it comes into territories of somebody trying to get one up on you. Now, not everybody that's showing you love means that they're love bombing. So let's slow that down. There are some people who can love you fully, love you authentically, and it's not for a game. It's not for manipulation. This is why we can't get used to using buzzwords like this, because you try to apply that to people that actually care and actually want to be around you. Now you're getting into relationships and you're constantly questioning, is this love bombing? And I'm like, fam, one of the greatest ways to know if the love, if the likeness, if the enjoyment, if the excitement, if the attention is something that's intentional, guess what the difference is? Time. Time. Somebody put time. Time. Time, time, time. What are they doing over time? What are you doing over time? Right? This is what gives us the ability to exercise the muscle of discernment. What are we doing with time? Is this something that you do in the first 2 weeks, then you go silent? Or is this a level of consistency that's showing up? One of the greatest, really, I want to say the greatest compliments I've experienced being out here on these dating streets um, in my time was someone telling me that it didn't matter how long it took for them to respond, my energy never switched up. And it allowed them to then respond and follow up by saying, I feel safe. Get this, y'all. You don't get that from performance. You don't get that from places of performative behaviors. You get that from being consistent in dealing with beliefs, dealing with foundations, dealing with behaviors that allow you to come into alignment, realizing that no matter what somebody else does, it doesn't have to switch up who I am and what I'll do. That's freedom. Time. Time. Time will tell if this is legit. Time will tell if this is something you're legitimately wanting to keep up. Time will tell. Time will tell. And we have to be willing to give something time. I know they want to give you all the gifts. They want to shower you with all the love. They want to FaceTime you every night. They want to do all this kind of stuff early on. That's called infatuation. I'm more connected. I'm more understanding. I'm more grounded and centered when this is the type of energy that is kept up. Matter of fact, when the energy isn't even there, but I don't have to question if you like me because I know who I'm dealing with. Because I know who I'm dealing with. I've seen your character. I've seen your consistency. That is what I look for. Because that is what actually gives us the best chance to date healthily with a leverage. Y'all, I'm just presenting this stuff to you because for far too long, we are allowing the dating scene to predict and interpret what's available for you. The dating pool is trash. The dating pool is this. The dating pool is that. And y'all are allowing that to determine what's available for you. And you don't even realize the blessings that you miss or the blessing that you can be. And if we just exercise the muscles of discernment with time, consistencies, clarity, capacity, character, and compatibility, life is different. It's less about stopping people from cutting up around you who see what you present, don't agree with it, and find a way to crash out. I ain't got nothing to do with that. That just lets me know this ain't it. It gives me leverage to be able to allow my no to be just as strong as my yes. Because some of us are not in a place where we feel confident to date, not because something is inherently wrong with us or that we're broken, but because you have yet to really be able to exercise your no. So you're willing to go and be with anybody and everybody out of the sake of not avoiding, out of the sake of not abandoning them and hurting them while abandoning and hurting yourself. That don't sound like a dating app problem to me. That sounds like a you problem. And it's not about trying to control everybody else in the dating space. It's low barriers of entries everywhere, y'all. It really is. The same issues that we just highlighted throughout this journey and that we're going to continue to revisit are the same issues that you're going to run into if you didn't use a dating app and you were just out here connecting with people in real time in person. It's not a dating app problem, man. It's a human heart issue. It's a lack of awareness issue. It's a lack of healing issue. And I just don't want y'all to come into these situations and limiting your experiences or opportunities because you don't believe you can trust yourself enough to make a healthy decision, aligned decision. Okay. So, but in order to do that, we have to exercise our discernment muscle. And that doesn't mean ridding of all the poor options. It means trusting ourselves enough through what God has given us to be able to decipher between the good and the bad options. Be confident in the wisdom developed over time. Thank you, Shanae. We can wrap it up. Courtesy of Shanae. Be confident in the wisdom developed over time. It's not about getting it right all the time, y'all. It's just about being aligned. I want to take the pressure off of you. It's not about getting it right. It's just about getting and being aligned. You may have looked at somebody and said, you know what, this makes sense. But the further that you went in to connect your mind, hey, I know I said I was initially interested and things were looking good, but man, I'm looking for something different and it's just not here. Now I appreciate you a ton for taking the time to just see what this is about and trust that people can handle the rejection. Now, most people can't because they haven't done the work, but that's not a you problem. And that's not designed for you to carry the load of being emotionally responsible for people around you. That's called people pleasing. That's not grace. That's not niceness. That's not love. That is called people pleasing. Paul said, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, not under the feet of people pleasing, not at the mercies of people pleasing. But I beseech ye, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. He never said to be at the mercies of people pleasing. And I feel like there's a lot of you that would have better dating experiences if you were just honest up front that you just did not like and were not interested in some people. They didn't align, they don't make sense, and we should just keep moving forward. But y'all, no, y'all like to drag things out. And it's like, no. Okay. And I do think wisdom and discernment can give you permission to wait. Absolutely. There is this wisdom and discernment to wait. But let's not also, okay, it kind of goes both ways, right? Let's not also get caught up in this idea of waiting when in reality you're waiting for something to change about somebody that you're seeing isn't going to change. There are some things that need time. Absolutely. We get to decide what needs time though by what we see. And some of us are just in different seasons than others. It's called healing. Some of us are in different seasons than others. Some of us are more available for things at certain times than others. And so we're honest about that. Let's be honest about that. Okay? I hope this made sense. Let me give you this framework really quickly and then I'm gone. All right? Give you this framework really quickly and I'm gone. Okay? It's called a nice little fruit filter. If you wanna be able to look at a fruit filter, all right? Because all of this is kind of summarized. When I think of fruit filter, I think of Galatians 5:22. Okay, fruit of the spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, meekness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Okay, a lot of these things are actually culminated in these things. Okay, number one, here's the first of five fruit filters. Number one, clarity. Do they know what they want? Newsflash: do you know what you want? Okay, write these down. You're gonna want them later. Number one, clarity. Do they know what they want? Do you know what you want? This isn't a question we just asked to them. It's a question that you need to reflect and ask yourself. Because some of y'all on these dating apps and y'all talking about figuring out dating goals, and it's driving me crazy. We just gonna bump our head and figure it out along the way. And that's how y'all end up giving access to the wrong people, being fumbled, being hurt unnecessarily, because you don't even have your ideas figured out. And it's probably more than likely because of the hurt you've experienced, not because of what's out there. We can get into another time. Clarity. Do they know what they want? Do you know what you want? Number two, consistency. These are the five C's. It's a five fruit filter. All of them are C's. Number one, clarity. Number two, consistency. Do words and actions align? Alignment, not by my definition, by a good friend of mine, Dr. Zeb. He defines it well. When your thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs all agree. Thoughts, words, and actions all agree. Okay. Before, I want to give y'all this because sometimes we might walk into some spaces where we're thinking we need to move in behavior modification. That has never been the goal, not only of the gospel, but that has never been the goal, okay, of the internal work that we need to engage in. There's a lot of us that move in a place where we're trying to change the action. But before you change the action, there was an emotion that produced the action. Before there was an emotion, there was a thought. Okay? Before there was an emotion, there was a thought. Before the thought, trying to get this right because I'm actually real confident in this. This is going to work. Okay? For those of you, action, emotion. Mm-hmm. Mm. Ooh, sorry. Back it up. Back it up. Let me recover. Before there was an action, decision. I knew I was missing one. Messy all day. Decision. Okay? Before there was ever an action, there was a decision. Okay? Before there was a decision, there was an emotion. Before there was emotion, there was a thought. Before there was a thought, there was a belief. Because your beliefs produce your thoughts, thoughts produce emotion, emotion produces decisions, decisions decide actions. Okay? And what's very beautiful about this is not to say that every thought that comes into your mind is a reflection of a belief you hold. We know our brains do what brains do. Okay. For some of you, this can be really freeing because this is not saying that the thoughts and all the thoughts that come in out of your mind is a reflection of something you're not. No, this is just our thoughts doing what our thoughts do. And when we learn to just simply let our thoughts pass instead of cling to them, always observe them, or feel like we need to have an answer to them, life all of a sudden just relieves us of all the pressures that we've created. Okay. But when we talk about this aspect, we're not moving in this behavior modification. Before we can change the behavior, we got to first address the belief that led to the behavior. What has to be true for me to move in this way? What has to be true for me to say the things I say? What has to be true for me to behave the way I behave? We're not asking, is it true or not? We're just saying what has to be. What has to be true? These can be a plethora of different things. What has to be true? If we stay curious enough in these spaces, we'll actually get somewhere. Okay? But when we're talking about words, actions, and agreement. Number 3, okay? Character. Clarity, consistency, character. Character, do they show aspects of their character? Okay? Humility, honesty, patience, self-control. Where's the fruit at? Now, we don't need them to have it all. Because if we're being honest, there's some areas in your life you don't have it all. So stop expecting people to have what you don't have. Stop expecting expecting people to be perfect where you're still developing. Okay? But is there humility? Is there honesty? Is there patience? Is there self-control? What is showing here? Okay? Character, who they are, through thick and thin. When they're up, they're this way, and when they're having low days, the character is consistent. Okay? This is why a lot of y'all need to stop rushing to make identifiers of relationships until you see them upset, till you see them going through some things. You don't got to force it and create some fake scenario. Life has a way of just happening, and you just get to see how people deal with it. Observe. Does character remain? Okay. Clarity, consistency, character. Okay. By the way, character is something that doesn't give someone permission to call you out your name and be disrespectful to you in the event of being offended. Knowing someone of character is going to help you be connected in a place where you don't have to worry about them being disrespectful and distasteful to you, in the event of an offense and allowing the offense to become the excuse. Okay. Clarity, consistency, character, capacity. Are they emotionally available for what they say they want? Well, how do we measure emotional availability? Okay. How do we measure emotional availability? Well, I mean, I think that's pretty clear. We do have to ask some thought-provoking questions like how do they deal with disappointment? How do they handle rejection? Okay. When they talk about they want marriage and they want this and they want that, hey, describe that to me. What does that look like for you? Listen, ask some more questions. Hey, where do you feel like that comes from for you? Is there anybody that you can think of that reflects back to this? And here's the thing, if somebody is looking at you and you asking those questions makes them say, this isn't a therapy session, to each his own, but that gives me a great indication that this is not the place to be. Now, I know I can get ahead of myself sometimes, so I have to be mindful of it. Listen, I yap for a living. I coach for a living. This is just me. Okay. But I also recognize too, I want people to feel connected, not feel cornered. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's can be moments where you can pull back, but I shouldn't have to feel as if I have to tiptoe and I'll walk on eggshells around somebody to make them feel comfortable because I'm asking questions that need answers and for this to continue to move forward. Okay. Are they emotionally available? Emotional availability is oftentimes so shown through one's ability to be present with themselves. One's ability to be present with themselves. Hey, when you're not busy, when you're not working, when you're not doing anything, what do you do? Do you enjoy some me time? Do you enjoy some of those things? What are some habits and routines that you engage in? Okay. I've met people, hey, I don't like being bored. I don't like being by myself. So I like to go and do. That's a red flag to me. Okay. Are they emotionally available for what they say they want? And we're not asking them to be perfect. Do they understand what they want and are they ready for the journey of it? Because the journey is going to do a lot of the exposure. Are they ready for the journey? Are you ready for the journey? So before you start turning, I want you to really get this because I think this is the meat of it all. Before you start trying to flip these questions to everybody else, I need you to ask these questions to yourself honestly. Ask these questions to yourself honestly. It's a great reflective point. Okay. Clarity, consistency, character, capacity, finally, compatibility. Are your values, faith, lifestyle, and direction aligned? We're not asking, are you perfect? We're not asking you, are you floating in every room eating communion for breakfast? Okay. We're simply talking about, do you align? You say you value peace and you say a deal breaker for you is when a relationship doesn't carry peace, then I should not see you re engaging with somebody that is dysfunctional and doing nothing but taking your peace. Hey, I appreciate you, Eco. I'm not taking a request today. No, sir. But I appreciate you, man. Hope all is well. Follow with a message. Okay. If you say that you value peace and that there's a deal breaker for you in relationships where peace is not there, right? I can't be a part of it. You going against that is you literally going against your own values. Okay. If you say, I value Jesus, he is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his spirit, washed in his blood. This is my story, all the things. If you say Jesus has to be the center of my relationship, and yet who you're connected to is somebody who ain't nowhere near that, got some explaining to do. Got some splaining to do. Okay. Values, faith, okay, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We talked about that being the compatibility hallmark. Okay. These are the things that make sense. All right. So before you start turning these questions to other people, where is it at for you? And of course, in response, where is that for other people? If you struggle answering any of these questions, do some homework. Do some thinking, do some reflecting. Okay. 5 C's of the fruit filter: clarity, consistency, character, capacity, compatibility. Okay. What are you attracted to most? Are you liking them for how they look and how they make you feel, or do you see fruit? Now, both can be present, but if it's more, I just like how they make me feel because they make me feel wanted, because they make me feel loved, because they make me feel attended to. Don't get so caught up in that you ignore the missing fruit, if there is any. And being able to be in process with people, y'all. This is big. Being able to be in process with people. You do not have it all together. They don't either. Stop expecting people to come together with all this stuff. If you see something there that's a value and it's ready and able to build, this comes into the conversation of capacity. But be honest, man. I don't need you to have it all, but let's have something here that allows us to build on together. That's a beautiful thing because you don't have it all together. There are things in areas in your life that you would want to be better. So does people you're dating. Give them that same grace. But that doesn't mean that I have to excuse so much to be with them. If they don't align in the core values, y'all, what are we doing? What are we doing? Okay. Okay. That's it. I had to take a breather. I'm done. Was this helpful? Was this helpful? I hope it was. Put a one in the chat if it was helpful. Okay. Remember, y'all, discernment is something that's a muscle that we have to put ourselves in position to build. It's not going to come over time. It's not going to come overnight. Or it does come over time. It's not going to come overnight. Okay. And discernment is not the removal of a thing, it's the ability to see something for what it is, call it out, and move accordingly. And the way that we build in discernment, yes, we can look at our own lives, we can look at the lives around us. But listen, y'all, we got to get rid of this belief that finding the right person isn't supposed to come with challenges, or en route to finding the right person for you, that you are supposed to experience people that you thought were and weren't, that maybe ended in rejection, ended in a failed relationship and connection. That's all part of the game and journey. The sooner you embrace that, the greater your probability is of finding the person that you want to connect with. Okay. All right. So I hope this made sense. You can find this replay over on YouTube. All right. I haven't gotten around to reposting any of these replays on Instagram, but they are all on YouTube. All right. You can also catch the previous 5 parts now over on YouTube. Okay. The dating app dilemma. You can catch my content, Coach Sean Walker. Okay. Across all platforms, specifically on YouTube. Okay. So you want to catch that. Listen, y'all, I appreciate you guys a ton for being a part of this. I'm glad that this was helpful. If in any way, shape, or form that this was beneficial to you, would love a testimonial, not just of this, but of course, other lives, messages, content that you've heard. If you turn in a testimonial to me, I will give you a free session in response. Okay. If you turn in a testimonial to me, I will give you a free session in response. All right. Just DM me the word testimonial. I'll get you what you need to get that testimonial in. And then once it's in, you got a free session. All right. For those of you who are still here, appreciate you a ton. You do have a discounted session. All right. Just send me a message with the code word discount and I'll get you my Calendly book that ends in 50%. That is a 50% off code. Okay. Or Calendly that you can use for the rest of the month of June. All right. If you are interested in getting into coaching and actually engaging in transformative direction for your relationships and your life, do me a favor and DM me the word secure. If you DM me the word secure, we'll go through an options and, of course, the process to be able to get you what you need. Okay. Working through anxiety, working through anxious attachment, breakups, relationships, singleness, all the things, you name it, we're working through it. All right. And this is the space to be. I also have a free 1-week trial of my secure program that is live right now. People getting wins and results. I want you to get the same too, because it's designed to help you go from anxious or avoidant attachment to secure attachment. All right. And so the first week is free. I want you to check it out. All right. Send me a message with the code word secure. We'll get it started. All right. For those of you who are wanting free resources, a free relational diagnostic, or you're like, hey, I don't know what my attachment style is. I need to figure that out. Go to the top of my page, click that link, okay, on my socials, and you will be able to click that link, take a free relational diagnostic and an attachment style quiz. All right. So we can navigate there. All right. If you don't do any of that, be sure to follow for more, subscribe, and turn on your notifications anywhere and everywhere so you know the next time that we're posting, we're going live, all the things related to building healthier, happier, and whole relationships with yourself, with God, and with others, about building security that lasts beyond marriage. The scriptures that we use today, Deuteronomy chapter 18. Just so y'all had the scriptures again. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 18. All right. Hold up, coming back. Making sure I get it right. 18, verse 21 through 22. And Matthew 7. Okay. Verses 15 through 20. Okay. Those are the beginning passages. Of course, so many others that we referenced. And I hope this was helpful. See you guys shortly. May not be on next, may not go live tomorrow. If anything, expect another live at the earliest Monday. Okay, but expect some content as we're posting and reposting some of this stuff. Stick around. Check out my testimonial stories as well. If you guys are interested in finding out other people who have engaged in the coaching and have gotten some awesome results that you can benefit from too. Okay, I'm excited to connect with you guys as always. Until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy. Peace. Appreciate y'all a ton. Shout out to you,